So before we get into this video, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Nobody. You gotta always stay on your toes with me. I'm 22 years old. You know, a lot of people come up to me and they're like, yo, you grew up in the golden age of movies. You know, Harry Potter, the Lord of the Rings, Dark Knight, the MCU, the Disney Star Wars, the Minecraft movie. I think a lot of people would refer to the era we're in now as the slop era, or a lot of entertainment seems like it was perfectly engineered in a boardroom to sell as many toys as possible, devoid of any semblance of soul. I feel like that's mostly true, but there are still good movies being made. Really good movies. They just seem further and more far between than it was when we were kids. For every Parasite, there's 3 Jurassic Worlds, 2 Disney Star Wars, and a failed Pixar. My whole life I've heard these names of classic movies that shaped the medium, but they were old and ooey gooey and fucking old. Where's the explosions? Hello? Today I am but a caterpillar, but by the end of this video, I will be a butterfly that has watched 3 movies. What is all the fuss about? Do these films hold up? Can my dopamine fried brain sit through an hour and a half without playing balloons on the other monitor? Stick around to find out. First movie I wanted to watch, 12 Angry Men. First off, the title is scaring me. I don't like when people are angry at me, let alone a dozen of them. So I watched it and I reached a unanimous verdict that the movie is good. If you've never heard of 12 Angry Men, it's a bottle movie where there's 12 jurors trying to reach a verdict in what seems to be an open and shut murder case until one guy's like, well, maybe he's not guilty, and then everything opens up. It's a very simple premise, a very simple movie. It's literally just 12 people talking to each other, but it's encapsulating. I mean, of course, what really stands out is the dialogue. I mean, what else would it be? The rain effects? Watching movies from 60 years ago is just a fun time capsule on its own. There's a few moments where they said something and I was like, damn, shit was different back then.
I called the weather bureau this morning. This is gonna be the hottest day of the year.
Check out this guy though. Taking fat rips. Some things never change. I love bottle movies and episodes. I think it's a fun thing to observe the writers trying to make every single word count and be as efficient as with the dialogue as possible. And this movie does a great job at that. Within the first few seconds of each character opening their mouth, you can already get a feel for their personality. You got the guy that won't shut up about baseball, the more timid guy, the loud outspoken guy, the racist guy, the emotional guy, logical guy. All of them play off of each other's characters perfectly, going toward the goal of reaching a unanimous verdict. The jury aspect is fun too, because like they lay the information out to you so you can kind of play along at home. So you're kind of in the shoes of the 11 people that are like, what do you mean he's not guilty? But as the movie goes on, some new information's added. You can see how each point someone brings up affects each person in a different way. And these are all people with different biases. Like I mentioned before, the racist guy and the guy who has problems with his own kid affecting his choice. There's a small tonal shift around 2/3 into the film where it starts pouring outside. It creates like this white noise and a really cool atmosphere complemented by everyone's uncertainty at this point in the movie. Another touch I liked was everyone getting progressively sweatier as the movie goes on. A lot of cool moments and dialogue exchanges. Really enjoyed this one. Does it hold up? Yeah, absolutely. I'm just glad I got to figure out why those men were so mad. Also, if you're still here, only 0.0000025% of the world is subbed to my channel, so I mean, you could be pretty special. Next is Citizen Kane, another movie I've heard thrown around in sentences talking about the best movies ever. I'm excited to see if I'll get it. Right off the bat, I love this opening shot of this castle mansion looking thing where the shape of it kind of stays in the same spot, but everything around it changes. I always have to remind myself that what I'm watching isn't fiction because it's just so different from the world that I live in right now. When I saw Newspaper Tycoon, I was like, oh yeah, you know, it's not a bad gig, not like a global influence. Then I remembered this was 1941. If you owned all the newspapers, that was like owning every social media platform. You know that Vsauce video, Illusions of Time? That's what all of these movies felt like for me. When this movie referenced the 1800s, I had to remember that was like 50 years before this movie. But this movie is like 80 years old right now. It's just so bizarre. Ooh, there he is, the big man himself. It's always interesting to see how close they want to get to really depicting him, because this was like 4 years before his death. A lot of movies from this era are really grounded in reality, like when they reference the Great Depression and that not even being too far from when this was made is crazy to me. Like when a show now references COVID, I'm like, ugh, like get your own universe, you know? But film was still a pretty new thing at this time, especially movies with dialogue and audio. There wasn't really like a formula set out, so you often had like 15-minute expositions that just explain all the context you want. And then you watch the story unfold. Oh shit. Okay, we got a movie here. This film really impressed me. It felt really different from every other movie I watched for this video, and honestly pretty different from any movie I've seen. It constantly swaps between stories of Kane's past from the perspective of the people in it, and witnessing the effects of his life on these people. The storytelling is so dynamic and goes through so many themes of like love and greed and corruption and what those can do to people. There were so many scenes that just had me frozen until they ended. On the topic of the story going forward and backward in time, the aging effects really impressed me. Orson Welles really pulled out a great performance for this. As the film goes on, he becomes more and more of a fat cat, and you can really see the events of his life etched on his face by the end. Each big life event from his childhood to his inevitable death is delivered with a clear ending shown from the start. You already know what's going to happen to him, but it's shrouded in this mystique that gets thicker as the movie goes on until it all collides at the end, surrounded by the physical manifestation of his greed. The pacing, which is common for these old movies, is just slam bam so fast, like constant dialogue and expanding of the characters. Every scene means something. It never feels pointless. Even in the more flashy scenes, it only serves to thicken his character and make more contributions to his end. There's so many memorable scenes thanks to the cinematography and the dialogue. It makes sense that this is still hailed as a masterpiece of cinema because not only does it hold up, but it kind of just makes more sense as time goes on, kind of like 1984. Definitely a GOAT for a reason. Next one I wanted to watch is Psycho, one of the first real horror movies that scare you not because of a big monster coming to eat you, but because there's a lot of weird guys out there, or should I say, crazy guys. I have pretty high expectations going into this. Hitchcock said in his epic rap battle of history that he is, quote, the best mamma jamma ever stood behind the camera, unquote. So I'll be the judge of that. But let's start this. I'm ready for my nipples to fall off in fear. So far, the only thing freaky about this is this guy. I will say my pants are filled, but more on the front side. Going into this, I kind of expected it to be more horror-based, and it is, but I wasn't expecting it to be so focused on the psychological aspect. A lot of the creepiness comes from these minimalist, abrupt, silent shots that don't follow the rule of thirds. It just kind of makes you uncomfortable. The soundtrack also does a lot of heavy lifting and making you kind of uneasy. Like, all she's doing is driving away after taking a lot of money, and it feels like Ted Bundy is on her ass. Norman Bates in the motel had a creepy aura to it, but mostly just because of the cultural impact that it's had. The name just invokes something. But this is probably the scariest part of the movie.
I'm buying this house for my baby's wedding present. $40,000 cash.
There were a few parts of this movie that took me out. Like, I feel like if I was staying in a motel and there was a hole in the wall, like someone just stabbed it with a screwdriver, I would notice. Like, you could see the light come in. Even though I knew what was going to happen, the shower scene was pretty tense for me, mostly due to the constant flipping between camera angles and no music. It's obviously building to something. I didn't know a lot about this movie. I thought this scene was at like the end, but no, it's like halfway through the movie. So our main character's dead. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm on the edge of my seat. And then they follow that up with 10 full minutes of him cleaning up the murder that his mother just did. Like literally like a 10-minute scene. I don't think all of that was necessary. I do want to point out that this scene has a lot more of a creepy feeling if you know the ending, but I'll get to that. Wait a minute. That's an angry man. The cinematography of this movie is quite good. I like the ominous shots of the house with the mother in the window, as well as Hitchcock's use of the lighting. He's able to control how much of Norman's face is visible at all times, and it really makes you subconsciously feel things. I really like the scene with the PI and Norman, where he keeps making small mistakes and getting less confident as it goes on. Then the PI gets killed by Mother Bates. I know Alfred loves his dolly zooms, and I do too. It's always cool. From now until the end, it's basically just people trying to figure out what happened to the protagonist. Not really interesting. They talk with Norman and he's just as strange as usual, but nothing to write home about. This is the part that I really like. So the protagonist's sister walks into the fruit cellar and sees Mrs. Bates, but she's dead? Oh shit, so Norman killed his mom and her lover and like parades her corpse around and talks in her voice and kills people. Ooh, that's creepy. Adds a lot of creepiness to the earlier parts of the movie. I really like that. Then they have the scene at the end where a psychiatrist stands there and explains every single interesting thing that you just inferred and takes away all the mystique and creepiness. I did enjoy this movie, but kind of more from a historical standpoint. Like, it was fun to see the birth of modern horror. It was fun, and I liked the ending a lot before they slapped me in the dick with it. So if I'm asking the question, are Hollywood classics really that good? Mostly, yeah. If you're going into this expecting big elaborate action scenes or color, you'll be very disappointed, but there's a lot to love about the cinematography and dialogue of these movies. But that's my video. Thank you.